Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Mastery Alliance. It's the breakfast, the soul food, where we serve soul food to nourish the soul. You know, sometimes we can go through life and think that information. It's like today, we're swimming, drowning in a sea of information. But how do you apply it? How do you take the copious amounts of information flying through and make it make sense? So we're in the wisdom era, and we're here to serve up some food for the soul, some thoughts that will help convert. And I'm remind you before we start, my mentor, Dr. Tom Hill, said, you know, one idea well executed can change your life forever. So keep that in mind as we pitch this. So here's how it works in case you're just listening to this first one. Someone comes along of the four, and this group's open to anyone who can. There's no debate here about any concepts. We don't none of us know life down pat. There's zero debate. There's zero. We are philosophers, modern day philosophers. Just throw some ideas out there. We add to it. We enhance it, and we invite you to take this and take it and journal on it and do whatever you want with it. But we're gonna leave you with a little bit of nugget from us, our experiences. There's no right. There's no wrong. That's life. Life is there's no black and white. It's gray, completely gray. We can make plans and things change. So that's how it starts. Someone puts the main meal on the table and others add their piece to it. Next thing you know, before we're done, we have something beautiful that we can take away and nourish the soul. So today it's my turn to bring the main meal. And I want to spin this to the group and to you listeners. I was talking to many clients and family. Let's talk about family or people we're familiar with. And we often get upset that they did it again. Oh, they just keep doing this to me and they keep doing the same thing over and over again. They always do this. And we get just as upset every time they do it. So I heard a client, going on about it, the same thing again. And I said, so wait a minute now, they've done this before, right? Yeah, they just keep doing the same thing. They're really upset, really embroiled in the emotion of what they're about to experience with this person because they're doing it again and I can't believe it. So I said, it's funny, but if you go to a scary movie and you see it once, you're like frightened. Oh my God, that scene. Oh, but then you go 100 times. Are you still gonna be as scared and as raw in emotions? Every time you see this movie, it's the same reaction. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't. Like it's fresh. So I'm saying, sometimes when that family member, keeps doing the same thing, same behavior, why do we get so fresh, so upset, as if they've never done it before? As if you've never expected them to do this. It's the same behavior. It's the same thing they always do for the last, that's how they show up. That's who they are. That's how they are. Why are we so embroiled and so committed to this emotion that it ruins our day, and we just continue to carry these people on our backs and we're acting like they've never done it before. So I've often asked my clients, I said, so hang on. So you're really, really embroiled. I mean, engrossed in this, and it's turned and I mean, really, really sunken in. And is it your first time? No, they've done it all the time. Why are you acting as if you didn't see this coming? It's almost like going to the movies and watching The Exorcist 1,000 times and still being as scared as the first time you saw it. Wouldn't at some point, don't you know what's coming? Would you not be? Are you still going to be as scared? So I want to dissect that a little bit about, especially with dealing with repeated offenders that get you going. They know your button. They act a certain way. They behave a certain way every time you see them. But because you're so close to us, They know they press that button and we get triggered almost like the first time, every time. And it throws us off our game, our mastery game. But they're the ones that know how to push that. They know you very well and they know this interaction. It's almost like a codependency. When we react, they do the same thing over. So at one point, do we break it? At what point do we say, I know what's coming? We're going to go to this barbecue. We're going to get together. We're going to, oh, they're calling again. Maybe they're with the same repeated relationship issues. But we know it already. Let's start taking control of ourselves, first of all, our reaction to it, and guiding this thing and not let it get into our soul and affect us. So I hope that makes sense because that's the idea I shared with my client. And when she got it, she went, oh my God, I've been doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to throw it out there to you guys and see how we cannot. We've seen, so the title of this is You've Seen This Movie Before. That's it. Act like you have. So pass the mic.
Man, I'm gonna jump in here. Yeah. Well, first, I'm gonna say I don't have this all figured out. This is definitely a topic that I've or a concept slash process that I've struggled with for many years up until recently, and I still catch myself at moments. So, again, don't have it all figured out, and how this could turn into a like 2-3 part series. Honestly, you threw a lot on the table to dissect. I think we've seen this movie before, right? We know how the story ends, right? We know the ending.
We know how it begins and we know how it ends.
Yep, and the middle changes slightly, but it's pretty much the same storyline, right? Every time with folks, whether they're friends that are dear to us that we grew up with, whether it's family. I've got a family member that's we don't speak right now, and I hope we do one day. But that hope aspect, I'm going to focus in on that. Is I believe my experience and what I've seen others do, we hope for the best in people, even if the storyline's the same every time, right? We want to see the best, and sometimes we're blinded by the best, and we don't actually see what's happening. We don't see the pattern. We don't remember the 99 other movies we've seen already, versions, right? That just kind of goes, we know it's there subconsciously, but in the moment when we're allowing ourselves emotionally to be emotionally driven, and I say we, meaning myself, when I've been through this, I ignored it, and I was just caught up in the moment and like, oh my gosh, I've got to help, I've got to figure this out, or I'm upset because it's like, what are you doing? That's stupid. Why would you do that? This is what you need to do, right? Especially when that individuals come to ask for advice. And I think a lot of it centers around, just as most human beings want to see the good in people. And therefore, that's what we focus on, even if it's the same song and dance over and over. And that's an abbreviated version of some of my experience, very abbreviated version of my experience. But where I'm at today, so I hit that realization moment. Like you said, your client kind of did one of these, like, whoa. I kind of had that epiphany on myself. And it's when I realized the emotional baggage I was carrying because of this individual. And I was so invested and ingrained in their problems, their issues, their life, and I had no control over it. And I realized I can only control me. And we had a final conversation. They were complaining about something, and I asked that I've gotten better about asking the question when someone comes to me of, do you need me to listen in this moment? Are you seeking advice in this moment? Are you looking for my opinion? Right? Tell me what you need from me so I know how to respond to you. Because a lot of times, most of us are wired. We listen to respond, not listen to understand, or listen to just listen for somebody else's sake. And they asked for a response and my opinion on it. And I said, look, same movie, right? Same story. same actors, and yet we've been here before. And I say I have to wash. I gotta let go. I gotta wash my hands of this. I have to step back. Um, and that's what I've done. I can't. You may not have been the advice they wanted to hear or the opinion they wanted to hear, but I had to distance myself from that individual because for almost 30 something years, if not 35 years, this is how it's been. And I can't be invested in it anymore. And I love them. I forgive them for everything and anything, and hope, and I'm always going to be here for them. They could call right now, and depending on the situation, I would be there. However, the day in and day out grind of poor me, and it's the same thing over and over. I can't be invested in. It drains my battery, right, if you will. So,
Mhm.
high level overview, just to get the conversation started. There's a lot. There's a whole lot here. I can't wait to hear what Charlie and Ray have to say.
Amen.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. It's it's definitely a topic I think that most people can relate to and have experienced, right? And it is challenging for sure. And just a couple of thoughts I had about it. And again, not claiming to, have the the holy grail in front of me, and here's the blueprint. However, there are definitely some guideposts that I have, and some things that'll be helpful. Number one is, I think we have to accept reality, and sometimes it's hard to accept the reality as human beings. And what I mean by reality is that we have to ask ourselves, are we expecting behaviors from this individual that they're not capable of? Right? They're not capable of. And if we're expecting behaviors that people are not capable of, we're doomed for disappointment over and over and over and over again. So we've gotta look at that for sure. And then setting healthy boundaries is so important for all of us to set those healthy boundaries, because in all of this, we need to maintain our health as well, right? And I'm talking about our mental health. And so we have to have healthy boundaries. And then with those boundaries, we can't move the goalposts on ourselves or on others, right? And that's another common denominator that I see is people will set a boundary, and then there'll be some behavioral change and they'll move the boundary. Oh, I'm moving those goalposts. That wait a minute. You said the goalposts are here. Now they're here, or they're here, and that creates more turmoil as well. And the last time I looked at an estimate, the world population, there are 8.1 billion people on this planet. And the reality is we have a finite amount of time on the planet. We have a finite amount of time to spend with the ones we love, care about, and we've got to really be selective with that, because we can spin our wheels and spend a lot of time around the wrong individuals, and there's no reward for that. There's no great outcome for that when we do that. And then all of a sudden 25 turns into 45, turns into 65, and then you cannot get that time back. There's no refund on lost time, no refund. So we really have to be selective about who we let into our inner circle, who we let sit at our table. And because the seats are limited, and if we have the wrong people at the table, the right people cannot sit down because all the seats are taken. So we have to free up those seats so the right people can sit down. And that's one of the biggest lessons for me talking with my children over the years that I think has really made a huge impact on their life, and then of course their outcomes. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Hmm. Uh, Brandon, you said a a key word that I wrote down. Um, in how you approach the situation now is you've gotten better at asking questions, and I took that for me too, right? Where you're like, okay, what do you need from me right now? Okay, do you need me to listen? I believe you said. Do you need advice? And I forgot the third one. Okay, but I wrote down this one word. I wrote down response, right? The power of the response. This is where everything happens, and this is where we have our power and we have our freedom. Is no matter the situation, no matter the disappointment, we have this choice and this opportunity to respond, and over time we can improve the way that we respond. Okay, we can become more present, we can become more aware, and this is what I'm going to focus on is how can I improve the quality of my responses, you know. um, this is what can really change a whole situation. Okay, I can be that thermostat, I believe, like Alvin always says, instead of that thermometer. So response. So I thought that was awesome. Charlie, what you talked about, I wrote down one word also uh that stood out for me. It's expectations, right? It's expectations. That's another big word. And I found this wisdom online from someone named Sankruti. Okay. He asks a question. He's like, who hurts you the most? And he answers his own questions by saying, my own expectations. This is what hurts me the most. So it's
Mm.
not the other person, it's my own expectations that I set for myself. Okay. So if we really focus on these two words, okay, response and expectation. Okay. How do we improve the quality of our responses? You know, that's another call in itself. Okay, just that. And when it comes to expectations, I believe that the less expectations I have for others, which I don't control others, right? I can control myself. So maybe, all right, let's keep putting expectations on ourselves. We have control over that, but we don't have control over other people. So I truly believe that when I have less expectations for them, I can simply appreciate them for what they are. It's easier to set clear boundaries for me. It's easier to be in the moment. When my expectations are too high or unrealistic because I care, I care, and I have this little glimmer of hope that's saying, man, I know they can do it, but they keep falling short and falling short and falling short. Maybe I'm just setting myself up for disappointment uh, all the time. So yeah, when you look at it that way, I find, man, it's much more logic and simpler, but we control ourselves. So it makes sense to set expectations on ourselves. I'll love to have your opinions on that, but I don't control other people, you know? So maybe set less expectations on them. Just make sure my values are clear. The way I live my life is clear. The way I interact with other people is clear. And in the end, I can just show up the way I need to show up, have the accurate response, in this way. And again, I don't have this all figured out. I'm just listening to you guys and I'm learning so much at the same time. A third thing I want to talk about, and all week I was actually thinking about this, okay, is finding the root of problems. Okay. So, Brandon, you went on vacation and you said the food is just so different, right? And you're right. Every time I go to Cameroon, while I was born, the same fruits that we have here sometimes, let's say pineapples, bananas. It's crazy because I pick up bananas from trees, literally, like I
No,
walked on, just pick them from trees. Pineapples from the ground, they don't taste the same. They don't look the same, you know, not at all. It's like the best thing I've ever tasted. And I'm like, man, this is weird. And then, there's so much nourishment, but at the same time, every time I go there, uh, opposite to you, Brandon, I come back having gained weight. Having gained weight because they just feed me like a little chicken. Like nonstop. And I was actually thinking about this week because I am kind of an emotional eater. I would say that. Okay, I would say that, and I'm becoming aware of that over time. And as a kid, maybe coming here in Canada, we didn't have much. And one of the things is just my parents, they made sure we had things to eat. They made sure we weren't gonna have to go to people's places to get our food. So I guess it comes from there, right? And through willpower, through discipline, through habits, I always manage that. But whenever I have more stress, I find myself, eating a little bit of cake here and getting this here and getting this here, right? But why does this keep happening all the time? Is that I came to the realization this week that I never took enough time finding the root cause of the problem. Okay, the root cause of the problem. And this is so important in this situation when it comes to relationships, is that when there are people we truly care about and they keep falling short and our expectations maybe are realistic and we keep getting hurt and it's tough to have the appropriate response, but it keeps happening. We keep opening the door for it. Why do we do that? Because we do have the best of intentions, but are we spending enough time really looking at the root cause of why we're doing this? Because it starts with us. They have their issues, but we're part of it because we're also allowing it, right? So now, as I look at this for emotional eating, now as I look more through the root causes, I realize, oh, there was this fear of lack, you know, there's this fear of lack, and that's how we got comfort. They're like, hey, get this food, get this food, get this food. And as I understand more the actual root cause of it, I can address it, in a way that's much more powerful than simply having a response. Because the response really hasn't addressed the root cause of it. So maybe this is where I'll open up the conversation to our main man, Alvin Brown, about, yeah, how do we dive deeper and actually find the root cause of things, okay? So that we can set a strong foundation from the beginning to then have the appropriate response, And even before we have the appropriate response, well, we can have the right expectations for ourselves, for others, for what we want for a situation, all of that. And I'll pass the mic.
All right, all right, all right. I'm there's a lot here. There's a lot of meat, and Ray, nice transition, because one of the things I wrote at the top of my notes is an NLP wisdom that says the meaning of communication is the response you get. So instead of getting upset or getting frustrated, change the communication and until you get the right response. If you want an amicable outcome of this conversation, this interaction with somebody. Instead, we get embroiled in it and caught in it. So it's a great way to start what I'm gonna share. So Brandon, I'll go with start there. And he said invested and ingrained in their problems. Sometimes we get invested in their issues. So I'm thinking about this, and there's a great wisdom that says the best way to help a poor person is not become one of them. Right? The best way to help them is not become one of them. So that means you get better. For things to change, you must change. For things to be better, you must become better. Another one by Jim Rohn. So and then I was thinking about this other one. What if someone is drowning? What's the best method to save a drowning person? And you're out underwater. And this happened to me when I was young. I jumped in the water and I didn't know how to swim. And I remember a friend jumped in and I pulled him down. I pulled him right onto that thing. All right. Until I got calm. And then by the time they pulled me out and him, he was almost blue because I kept. So what's the best way? Don't jump in with them. So then I wrote here. So what's the best part of the movie? What part of their movie are you playing a main character with them? So it becomes that codependency. So sometimes we actually enjoy hearing their stuff. Maybe it makes us feel better about us. So we keep playing this movie with them. We are the main character in it. We're the co-star in this movie with them. So they come along, they're drinking again, or they're cheating again, or they're doing this again, or they owe you money and they keep and you're surprised that they didn't pay you. But wait a minute now, they haven't paid you in 20, 30 years. How are you still surprised? How are you still acting like this is a new thing? God, I can't believe you didn't pay me. I lent him. Wait a minute now. You just lent him that all the time. He's never paid you back. So why is this fresh? Why does it seem like it's a surprise? You've seen this movie before. So at what point though do we lend them the money so we could watch them fail so we could have something to talk about? Could it be that? So we saw the movie already. Come on. You know the ending. You know it's gonna go. She's gonna jump out of the closet. You see it already. So why are we acting? Oh my God, they came out of the closet. Oh my God, I didn't even see it. No, you already saw the movie. But could it be then that I lent you this money knowing you'll never pay me back so I could have some leverage so I can complain about you not paying back the money? Are you part of the movie, part of that character? So at what point someone's going to ask themselves, because when you see somebody tell you about this, the same thing, oh, they did it again this week. Or that partner they had cheated again. And they're acting as if they're surprised, but that's what they do. And it reminds me of the wisdom, again, the story of the scorpion and the frog. Right? The scorpion, in case some people haven't heard it, the frog's in the water, the scorpion says, hey, I need to get across the water, but if I'll drown if I jump in. The frog says, no way you're gonna jump on my back. You sting frogs. He goes, no, I won't sting you. That's crazy. If we get in that water and I sting you, you drown and I drown. That's crazy. He goes, well, okay, that makes sense. Jump on my back. Halfway over, he stings him. They're drowning. He says, hey, well, I thought you weren't gonna sting me. We're both gonna drown. I said, well, that's what scorpions do. So it is what they do. They just can't help it. So we've seen the movie before. Why are we surprised? So then we go to Dr. Charlie. He says, do they have the capacity to make the change? That's a beautiful answer. Do they? So now you've said you listen and you give them advice and they never listen to it. I mean, you've seen the movie. They never listen to it. They never follow. It's a great advice. But do they have the capacity? So I'm thinking of, say, a part relationship. The person gets the same. They change the name, but it's the same person. They act the same way. And they said, oh, they just can't, my love language is to touch and my love language is this. Well, is that their love language? Did anyone tell them you need them to say approve and say I love you, and they never say it? Do they have the capacity to say it? Have anyone told them? Or did they grow up in a nurturing household that loved them and touched them? No, they may not. So to them, loving is another whole different way they show it. And now you're expecting this outcome and it's not there. So then there's this mixed mismatch. So do they have the capacity to say I love you? They may not. Do they have the capacity to say you did a great job, man? Oh, I'm so proud of you. No one's ever told them that. So they think you'll need to hear that. I don't need to hear it. So they don't have the capacity. So it's a great, great response. Do they have it? Ray, the power of the response, absolutely. Are you helping the person every time when they come to you and they anchor you to the complaining? This is why most people find it hard to change out of groups too, by the way. Because if you and I are hanging out for the last 10 years and I've entertained and condoned your complaining, and And you come to me every time, and we do this together. We go for coffee and we do the same thing. We don't realize we're doing it. We're not actually helping each other, because now when I see you, all I think of is what's wrong with my life, because that's what we do. If I start talking about something different, what's right? It's not strange. That's not what we do. This is not how we meet. What is this behavior? So the response, and then expectations, huge. We did a podcast on this. Expectations a thief of joy. Because when we expect something, and I love what you said, who hurts the most? My own expectations. Yeah. When we get it, if I get on this call and I expect something from you guys and it doesn't happen, or expect whatever it is I expect from my partner, I expected you to be this or do that. Women and men have this issue too. Sometimes, men have to understand that when women say, no, I don't need your help, they actually want your help, but expected you to understand that they meant help me out. But you thought, oh, okay, you don't need, you go and watch the game. Yeah, well, you saw me working. I expect you to pick up the idea that I needed your help. Oh, okay. Right. Brandon's laughing. He knows this. Right. So expectations. Just tell us you want help. We'll do it. But shouldn't have to tell you. Yeah, you kind of have to actually tell me, because I thought you didn't need it. So who hurts you the most? Your own expectations, not them. And the standards you set. So here's the other thing I said. When you're so busy expecting somebody else or keeping somebody at a certain standards, how about you? How about your own? Are you meeting your own standards? You're so busy holding people to a certain level. Are you keeping your own standards? Are you keeping yourself at a certain level? So we played this movie before. Maybe the best way to get rid of expectations is be the change. You're so busy setting the bar so high for somebody, and maybe we set that bar because we want them to fail too. It makes us feel better. Why do people love gossipy tabloids and now reality shows? They make it. I remember years ago, Tony Robbins did a series, a 10 series episodes on NBC called Breakthrough. And it was all about people breaking through their resistance. And at that same time, Jersey Shores came out. Same time, both of them. Well, Tony only ran 3 or 4 episodes of Breakthrough because no one was interested in this overcoming and positivity. And Jersey Shores went for 5 years, I think. So they wanted to end it. So again, people are not so much interested in we seem to gravitate towards somebody else's trash and junk. So it makes us feel better. That's why these shows and these tabloids work. We love finding out the celebrities are fell, that they have weakness, because it makes us feel better. So that goes to, again, with these people who have the movie, why do you keep falling for it? Because it makes you feel better. It makes you feel better, and deep down, it makes you feel better that they screwed up your life. And so now you feel a little bit better about your life. Or else the best way to be is to show up so we can help them. And if you're truly helping them with that, truly want to help them, maybe it's not condoning the stories. Maybe it's telling them the truth. Hey, no, here's what, I'm not going to listen to this anymore until you change, because this is what you need to do to change. And I'm going to hold you to that. And you know what? Maybe they don't come back to you again because they don't want to hear you hold them accountable. But you see, we don't say nothing. We just keep on condoning. Oh my God, and reacting. Oh, I can't believe you don't. It's the same movie. We play it. We play our character. We play our role in it, and it just keeps the movie going. Right. So, anyways, those are my thoughts. Those I want to add to that, and I pass that mic.
Man, there's a couple things if I can jump in really quick. Charlie, we've all heard him talk about there's only so many seats at the table, right? And I've never really looked at it that way, but it makes total sense. and the value of those seats. And I think sometimes we rent those seats out, we sell those seats, we give those seats away uh, to individuals that don't add value or bring nothing to the table, if you will, right? They're consumers, and not there's not a balance there of give and take. So, for something I've shared with other people is make a list. Your average table has what, 6 seats? I mean, you can go 4 if you want to, but 6 seats is probably pretty average. And make a list. Who's sitting at your table? Who are you giving your time to? Who are you allowing into that space? And that's a tough list to make, right? If you really do it, you might have a little kiddie table too, right? At most family fun. Who you got over at the kids table, right? That one, or the in-law table or something like that in the other room, not in the main dining room. But you can play with that a little bit. But I think it is important to identify really who we have sitting at our table. And Ray, you talked about expectations and response. You talked a lot about expectations and not having expectations to a certain point. But and I just want to highlight that my thought process there to add to this discussion is I think it can be dangerous to have no expectations. And I think some folks walk into things and they're like, oh, I have zero expectations. But I think underlying, and it sounds nice in theory, but obviously I don't want someone around that doesn't have any integrity or respect for themselves or respect for others, especially for others. There's a lot of people that don't have respect for themselves. I'd like for them to. That's the good in me hoping that they do and putting that expectation on them when maybe they're not capable of it. But I think it's healthy to have some expectation, but it needs to be real. I wrote down realistic, right? It has to be something that's coming from a place of integrity for not just myself, but hopefully for them as well. And if they don't have that self integrity and respect for others, then yeah, you can't sit at this table with me. Al, you talked a lot about the co-star aspect and the codependency and the why. And I think a lot of it's ego driven. It's ego driven, and people don't want to talk about their ego. People don't want to talk about, they don't want to self-admit or publicly admit that, I'm involved in this or I'm doing this just for my own self buildup, right? That's self pride, that self glory, right? I'm playing a part in this movie because I can go talk about it, or and maybe they don't even talk about it to anyone else. It's just for themselves to internalize that, hey, I'm doing this, I'm part of this. I told them what to do. Well, yeah, they're still doing what they want to do. That's still the same role they're playing. It's still the same ending for the past 20 years or 100 times, but I feel better because here I am right. I know I'm right. I know it could be different, but they're not listening. And we play that role sometimes for our own self ego and buildup, not always realizing it's a complete waste of our time. It's a complete drain of energy. And like Charlie said, it's time you can't get back. It's time you can't get back. In my personal situation that I shared a little bit about earlier, I cannot even begin to quantify the amount of time, the peace that I have in my life just by simply setting, as Ray talked about, a clear, I believe it was Ray, a clear boundary, right? Ray, you talked about that. Who was talking about boundaries? A clear boundary. Yeah, I'm sorry, Charlie. A clear boundaries and not moving those boundaries. We do that all the time, moving the goalposts, right? But you here towards the end, Al, you were talking about the capacity for change, and I think it goes back to what I said originally. I believe some people, just looking back now, I don't think everyone has the capacity to change. I want to believe that everyone does, but the reality of it is some people just don't. And we can't, thank God, we can't change people. We don't have that power, right? We don't have that ability to control other individuals. But as I think the common theme here, as I'm thinking about my word for the session today, is self-control, controlling oneself, whether it's our feelings, our emotions, our reaction, our response, our ego, our expectations, our own boundaries. It's that own self-control. Because at the end of the day, our own, if we change our standards or we adjust or we invest, I wrote down here, and I'll pass the mic after this. What's the cost? What's the cost of that investment? Whether we're invested in ourselves, cost and the cost and reward. What's the payout? What's the cost of giving my time? What's the cost of my opinion, advice, my role in the movie of somebody else's, like I'll use your word out, trash, right? That trash TV show. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Beautiful.
Lots of wisdom as always, fellas, on the call today. And as you all were making your thoughts known, I was just writing notes, just things that popped in them, that you triggered in my mind, things that popped into my mind. And one of them was this, just from what you were just saying, Brandon, about your, really taking inventory of who's sitting at your table. And I realized, like, every year, that last week of the year, I always take inventory of who's sitting around that table. So I do it on an annual basis for sure. But as I sitting here and listening, I'm thinking that maybe I need to do that semi-annually, right? Maybe that needs to happen more than once a year, just to make sure that that group that I'm with is really solid. And Beyonce said this, it's been a little while ago, but she said, I learned to embrace the good and goodbye, right? I mean, just that statement, right? It is a massive wisdom. There's good and goodbye. Okay. So that's not, sometimes we give it this connotation that it's just, it's bad, but there's actually a lot of good and goodbye, right? So we got to keep that in mind. And then just going back to this theme, our most valuable asset is our time. It's the most valuable thing we can give another human being. It's not money, right? It's our time. And again, it's so precious because it's finite. We know that. But here's the other big piece of our time is we don't even know how much we get. So we've got to stop spending our time like it's an unlimited resource, because it's not. And then we've got to stop spending our time like we know how much we have. We don't know how much we have. So then that really ratchets the value up even more. But I used to be a huge baseball fan. Major League Baseball, I would watch all the games growing up and in my young adulthood, and lost interest over time for a sundry of reasons. And but it's still a great game. It's still a great game, but I just lost interest over the administration of that game, I think, for lack of a better term. But I remember this quote, this wisdom from Tommy Lasorda, and he was talking about selecting his team. And he would get a player, and they're trying to make the Dodgers, right? And he said sometimes I'd have to pull a gentleman aside and say, hey, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, carpenter. There's so many things you can do in this life and accomplish, but you can't play second base for the Dodgers. I'm sorry, right? you can't. Sometimes we have to tell people that they can't play second base for the Dodgers. They can't be on our team. Because why can't all of us play second base for the Dodgers? They have goals, they have aspirations, they have a standard. There's all these things they have. And if you're not helping them achieve what they can, their goals are, if you can't live up to their standard, you can't be on the team. And that sounds cold and calculated, but what if anybody can play on the Dodgers, but they're going to be the worst team in baseball.
Mhm.
But they're one of the best teams because they have a standard, they have goals, they have aspirations, and they got to make sure that everybody on their team is pulling in the same direction and is going to help them win. And if they can't help them win, you can't be on the team. And that's the reality. We need to win in this life. There's no medal for, oh, we had all these terrible friends we kept in our life. And man, we just, we cried at the table with them and they brought us down. And yeah, that's going to be on our tombstone. No, it's not. It's not. And so we've got to have those standards, right? Those boundaries, those goals, those aspirations. And then when we have them, we can attract like-minded individuals to accomplish some things. Okay, but that's a harsh reality, but it is the truth. And we have to be comfortable with the truth. Is the truth always nice? No. Can we present it in a professional way? Can we present it in a kind way? Absolutely, we can. But it doesn't sound nice to the person on the other end of it if they're outside of that, if they fall outside of that standard. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
You're so right about that, huh? Everybody can't go. Everybody can't go. And that's so true. I just look at I love basketball. I look at the U.S. Olympic team right now, the basketball team, and I was listening to the Paul George podcast earlier this week. He's a perennial NBA All-Star, uh, great basketball player, right? And earlier during this past year, Steve Kerr, the head coach, for the USA team, came up to him after a game and he's like, "Hey, are you interested in playing for Team USA this year? We'll be in touch, in a few months." And Paul George was all excited. It's like, "Oh man, nice. Okay, I'm gonna make it to the team." But you know what? They never called them. They never called them. LeBron said he's in, Steph said he's in, KD said he's in. Sorry, Paul George, you can't go. You can't go. Right? So also, let's see, everybody can't go. And that's so true. Okay. Man, so much great stuff in what we've been talking about today. Boundaries. You're so right. All of you guys are so right when it comes to this. Even when I think of business or marketing or sales, what do people who truly succeed do? Okay, they don't only focus on attracting the right clients, they also keep away the clients they don't want. They're very clear in their boundaries. If you're looking for ABC, I'm not for you. Right? That's a very important thing. Also, Alvin, I have to tell you something about this new format. Okay, this new podcast format that I like, by the way, I really like, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm really focusing on the V word, the vulnerability word. Okay, the vulnerability word, and I find our conversations that we had every single Sunday is great. Knowing this is part of a podcast and being able to go into certain subjects and open up, I think that's even better because it puts it on the table where you have to truly practice what you preach, no matter what it is. And I really like this aspect of it for sure. So I wanted to say that. For me, I think this is definitely a positive thing. So yeah, the right team for sure, for sure. Not everyone can go. You gotta be the best teammate you can be for yourself. And I think it's Charlie. You also talked about the standard. The standard. What is the standard? That's also something that it's so important to clarify. It's so important to clarify. Why do all the major sports teams. You talked about baseball, we like football, boxing, whatever. They have these sayings, you know, on the wall. They play for something. They have a certain standard that's repeated over and over and over again. There's a culture, right? Like Brandon said, there's realistic expectations also. You know, I agree with that. You cannot have zero expectation for sure. They just need to be realistic, but you need to have a standard. So there's a lot to think about for me. This is a great call. I'll just kind of
Part
leave it
part
at
one.
that for now. Yeah, part
Yeah,
one
part one.
for sure. Part one for sure. What else did I write down? I know I wrote down one last thing. Yeah, simple. Just the fact that we are so ego driven, all of us, right? We are so ego driven. So I think finding anything that challenges you to practice humility a little bit more, put yourself out there a little bit more, is a powerful hack. And I appreciate that we have what we have and that we keep pushing the envelope. That's a great thing.
Awesome.
I'll
Awesome.
pass them.
All right.
I-
Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, you know, you were Ray, you were just talking about freedom, right? Doc Charlie talked about the power of freedom, you know, in our choices and how the power of the response. That's where our freedom can be found. And our egos, we've all got them, and I think there's an incredible amount of power and freedom for oneself when we do that self inventory, right? That gut check, and we get our own egos in check first, because I can't check I can check somebody else's ego. It's usually not fun for them. My own ego thrives, right? Because I'm better, I'm sticking my chest out kind of thing, kind of situation sometimes, and it can be hurtful towards people. But man, when you can control that self-control, you know, I think I'm gonna land on my word. It's gonna be my word. That self-control, there's power in that, and there's freedom in some self-control aspect of a lot of this. I just wanted to emphasize that freedom word. We could all
Love it.
use more of it.
Love it. Amen. Amen. I'm gonna touch on. There's a lot of great points, but I'm gonna touch on some key ones. Just looking at our timing, but here's the key ones that I'm gonna pull out of that. Seats at the table. You know, that's a big one. Again, count the cost of that, because if you think about it, look at this group here, this Mastery Alliance. Now I've become really um, mindful, extremely mindful, militant about my time. When Dr. Charlie and I, got together years ago, in order for me to take 90 minutes out of my life, my, waking up early, despite no matter what, I'm on the call. I had to weigh it. I had to weigh the cost. What's the cost? What would make me get out of bed? What would make anybody do anything? The cost. Cost, risk versus reward, the benefits. And so I find there's reward. So we count the cost. So why don't we do that when we are looking at who we're associating with? What's the cost? And don't anyone listening to this think it comes at no cost. Yes, 100%. It's insidious. Here's the scary part. It's insidious. It's under the radar. The cost comes in compound effects. You don't feel the first one, the second one, the third one. You may not even feel the 50th one. But you know something's wrong. But the 100th one, bro, it hits you compound. And the other one I want to touch on is, tell me this question. So everybody listening, think about that one person, only one. I'm sure there might be many, but think about that one person who drives you absolutely crazy with the repeated story, the repeated thing they do that doesn't get any better over and over and over and over again. Over decades, the brother, the sister, the friend, whoever it is. And you want to scratch your head, why do they keep doing it? You're frustrated when they do it. It's the same thing, the movie again. Tell me, what are you serving them? If they've been doing it for 20 years, aren't you part of the problem? You haven't been serving
Absolutely.
them, right? You have not been serving them. So why are you complaining? You're part of the problem. If it's been going on for 2 decades, 3 decades, then what do you are part of it. You are part of it. Because as I said earlier, the best way you can help a poor person is not become one of them. And either they're going to leave and not be around you, or they're going to force them to level up. But either way, they're going to change. But if they haven't changed, you are part of it. So I have someone close to me who repeated offender, and I limit my time. I'm sorry, I'm very meticulous. I'm a gangster with that. I limit my time. I cut that off because I won't be serving you. I won't be any good to you because one, I don't want to hear it again. You don't want to change again. So we're pretty much done here. I love you. Absolutely love you. There's a lot of good in goodbye. I love you, but I'm not serving you. So think about your personal relationships. I've given this to couples. If it's not working, how are you? You're not serving them either. You're not elevating. One of the things I tell my kids, be real, real meticulous. Be careful with relationships. Because if someone enters your life for a minute or for a decade, they're going to have an effect on you. And if they're not lifting you, the effect sometimes can be game changing. Game changing. Because once they leave, you are broken. Part of you is broken. And it's very hard sometimes to come back from that. So, we heard the movie before. But guess what? If it's a repeated series of movies, you've got yourself what's that movie about the speed racing? Um uh the one with Van Diesel.
Fast and the
Fast and
Furious.
Furious.
Fast and
Oh,
Furious.
Fast and the Furious.
You've got yourself a series of Fast and Furious
And there's
that
like
they
20 of those, and they're all the
okay,
Yep.
same. They're
all the
all the
same.
same.
Right. And they
Yep.
get
Just
some of them are
watch the first one and be done.
right, and some of them are getting ridiculous where they're off the planet Earth or something. Anyways, right? But we watch it. So, yeah, you're part of that movie and you're not serving them. So if you're not serving them, please let somebody else that will do that because you're not part of the problem. So, so those are the ones I really wanted to hit. If it's still going on, take time inventory. There's a lot of good in goodbye. Oh my goodness. Boy, oh boy. That's a big one. And yeah, so those are the ones I want to count the costs. There's a lot of good and goodbye. I'll see you later. I love you. And I wish you luck. But I'm not serving you. So I better leave this movie right now. It's over. Close the series. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Al, we've done a lot of talking about the table. It's interesting listening to everyone talk about the season at the table after bringing it up. And the roster, I love the team roster because it gives you a little bit more, a few extra positions, right, in your life, in your personal team. I also wrote down the bus, the plane, whatever works for somebody, right? And Charlie, your semi-annual comment, man, I'm almost getting to a place where I'm looking at things quarterly in some cases, right? Aspects of my life. But Al, you just talked about, the impact someone's having on you in your life, whether it's professionally or personally. And it just started writing down the question of what impact is someone having on you. And I wrote pushing you, pulling you, dragging you along, dragging you down. Are they lifting you up? What, and I'm sure I can go on and on. I'm gonna sit on that for a while and think about that, because what effect can a person have on me in my life or anyone's life if they're sitting at the table, if they're on the team, if they're on the bus, they're on the plane, they're on your boat, right? Are they putting holes in the boat? They sinking that boat for everyone? They dragging everyone down? It's just, I think there's a lot of aspects to look at that and really take inventory on that person or individuals that are taking your time. And if it's not adding that, it comes back to that. If it's not adding value, if it's not bettering you and even bettering them, I don't want it to be it sounds selfish, bettering me, you know, hopefully it's bettering them as well, right? If they're not getting anything out of it, it's obvious too, right? Sometimes that good in goodbye is for them, not just for me, right? For them to move on, to force change, right? We don't like change. It's why we keep watching this.
Brandon, hold that thought for a second. I don't usually jump in, but I have to when you said if it's better for you, my guess is going to be better for them. Because if I'm bettering you, you're going to bring me a great energy that I can feed off of. It's a two-way street. So, yeah, what's
Yeah,
better for you is better for them. Because I'm making you feel better, and it's going to be a double exchange. And I don't think I could make you feel better without feeling better myself. So, anyways, I just wanted to touch that
yeah.
before we, yeah,
I'll stop there.
beautiful.
Excellent. And I want to make a point too here that this doesn't extend to our personal life, right? It's in our professional life as well, in our day-to-day dealings. I had fun yesterday. This is my last set of driving lessons. I think one of my daughters, the last one, is getting her skills together, and then all the kids will be drivers on the road. And so we were going over some things, and she's very meticulous in her approach. She wanted to talk about overall philosophy, then the instrument panel, and then what's your strategy. She's taking notes, and it was really good. But as we were driving, we were talking about the vehicle. And once she got in the driver's seat, was getting the vehicle situated, being able to raise the seat to fit her type, being able to change the steering wheel to fit her, the length of her arms to move it up and or down or away from her or towards her. And so once she got it all, she felt like she could see the vehicle inside and out very well. I said, every vehicle is not capable of all the changes that this one is with those seats. There's a difference, right? And so, yes, this is a higher end vehicle, but part of it is it can accommodate the driver. You don't have to sit on a pillow. You don't have to try to strain to look. You can position this seat in the vehicle so that you can be successful. And as we were talking about the vehicle, I said, one of the important things once you have your own vehicle is you're going to need a good mechanic. I have one over here. I've been with this mechanic now for probably 17, 18 years, father and son. It's so important. And so even in our life outside of work and outside of our personal life, we still need to look at those seats on the table. I hear people complain about the shop they go to all the time, complain about the camera. Why do you keep taking your car there? You're disappointed. They're not meeting expectations. You don't feel like they're honest. They don't stand behind their work. Why would you keep going there? People do it all the time. I refer people to my mechanics and rave reviews all the time. And again, you want to get into my mechanic, you need to give them it's about a month out. The book about a month. You're gonna have to book a month. When you take your car over there, it's gonna sit, till they get. I mean, it's a month, but they're that good. And so again, we need to look at all of these different interactions and relationships we have and make changes accordingly, because that mechanic makes my life better, right? I know I get a fair treatment, transparency on the cost, and if something doesn't work or doesn't get fixed, bring it back in immediately, no cost to you. Have a nice day. We need
Reliable.
in our life, right? It's so huge. So I just wanted to make that clear that it's not just the personal life, it's also our professional life. And then the different vendors that we have, places that we do business, we need to approach it with the same intent so that we can improve our outcomes. With that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah. And I feel like all of this, again, we always talk about simplicity, right? simplicity. And sometimes it's as simple as just looking at what works and what doesn't, you know, when it comes to relationships, because we know when we're in certain situations with certain people, if we take a step back, we just know, man, this isn't working. Okay. It's not working. So man, let's go a different direction. And then if we dive deeper, then we can start thinking about, okay, then what works really, really well and what kind of works good, and that's how we keep improving step by step, step by step. Go for it, Charlie.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to interrupt. I had a quick thought. So, the great Maya Angelou said, once someone shows us who they are, believe them the first time, right? And here's a quick story about this mechanic. So a few years back, matter of fact, several years back, I talked about it when I was up with you there, Alvin, in Toronto. I have an uncle that's a military veteran, and he's having some issues with his car. And at the time, I had this not for profit that helped veterans. And he said, "Hey, I don't know if you're not for profit. That's something that you guys do. I could use help with this automobile repair." And it wasn't. It was really for people that are suffering from PTSD, really in bad shape. That was the thrust of that not for profit. But anyhow, so I went to my mechanic and I said, "Hey, my uncle's a veteran, and I'm gonna have him bring his car here, and I get the bill, right? But I don't want him to know I'm paying for it. He thinks it's this, he thinks it's this not for profit. And I don't want him to know it's me. And so just, fix it, let me know, I'll come up and I'll make the payment." And the owner looked at me and he said, "He's a veteran?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, I'll go in half on you. You pay for the parts, we'll take care of the labor." I mean, the biggest piece of the bill is the labor, right? So he's gonna work on that car for free without me asking anything. That just showed me who he was immediately, right? That's the character. So again, when people show us who they are, so important to believe them the first time.
Mhm.
So like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it talks about the intentions and also that standard, you know, that doesn't lie. Also, that doesn't lie. When someone's truly in it for the right reason, when someone truly has their hearts in the right place, it's something that's also felt. It's something that's also felt. Just the way you responded to it, it's like, what do you mean? Of course I'll take the labor. People like that,
Hey,
of course they're doing good. Of course they're doing well. Even as there's this supermarket close to where I live, this grocery store, as I would say. Okay. It's so funny because everywhere my wife and I go to get some food, we always compare. We're like, oh, this isn't like our grocery store. No, they don't do this. They don't do that. Man, it doesn't look the same, doesn't feel the same. Because you don't understand. Like uh, you walk in there, let's say it's raining, you got people with umbrellas waiting for you, walking you to your car, Walk teenagers also. And how a lot of people always talk down on teenagers these days, saying, oh, they're losing their values, all of that. But you can tell there's definitely a standard there, because every teenager that works there, man, they take their job seriously. Their attention to detail is something to behold. I'm telling you. So I always take that grocery store as an example of, I don't just go out there. Obviously, the prices are higher, for sure. But I still go. I still go all the time, because man, we get great service there. But I'm just always amazed by looking at the staff, looking at the attention to detail, and always thinking in the back of my mind, hey, there are true leaders here. It's a family business. They're involved in the community. You can tell, man, it matters to them. It matters to them. It's not just about, charging more. It's about, man, and there will always be a place for people like that in this world. So man, let's be inspired by these people, and let's be these people ourselves. And that's what it's all about. I forgot who said it, but what's good for us is also good for other people. I truly believe in that. I truly believe in that because you don't only benefit yourself, but you benefit somebody else for sure, by being the best version of yourself. And me, I always talk about it, when I'm around athletes, I let them know like clearly what my intentions are, whenever we have interactions, I tell them, hey guys, like now that I have two sons, and you guys know obviously I'll close on to my sons, but I tell these kids, I'm like, man, I don't need to know you. I know how important it is for you guys to grow into leaders because you know what? I'm dad, and just the reality of being dad. Maybe one day my sons won't listen to me. That's okay. But who are they looking up to? You guys. So naturally, by helping you guys, I'm helping my sons. It all comes around, and it's true. It's truly a cycle. It's truly a cycle. And I think that's amazing. So I'll just pass the mic.
All right, fellas. So I think this meal has been prepared with care and love, and I think it's whoever is listening will be filled and full. Their soul will be nourished. I'm gonna leave with this to wrap up this conversation of you've seen this movie before. Charlie actually said something, and this is the wrap. He says, I tell people about this mechanic, and I go there myself, frequent it myself. Here's the wrap. I don't watch news. I don't watch movies that don't make me feel great. When I'm done watching them, I realize that I can turn it off. I realize that I don't have to even watch it. I get the gist of what's going on in the world. Trust me, I don't miss it. But some people feel they need to have all day long running narrative of this story, whatever the story is, because somebody got to get the background, the underneath, the side, everything about it. I don't know what they're doing about it, but they just got to get that because they got to be informed. How they be informed. So my wrap is let's get used to watching positive movies. Let's get used to going to places where they make you feel good, where you're elevated once you leave. Because I don't watch things that bring trash in my mind. I don't listen to radio talk shows, anything that makes me feel a certain way, because that matters to me how I feel. So if you've seen the movie before, that person keeps coming to you. First of all, if they've been doing this for 20, 30 years, you're part of the character, actually. So let's change that. Let's realize you're part of character. Quit the movie. Get fired from the set. Get off the set. All right, I'm saying? So,
Right.
fellas, I'm telling you. Fellas, appreciate you. Our audience listening, appreciate you. And again, all the information will be in the show notes. Everybody, Brandon, Ray, Dr. Charlie, they'll be in the show notes. Check them out on LinkedIn, all their social medias, and support the work they're doing. And we've got lots coming in store. A mastery summit being planned, and we'll make that happen so we can spread this soul food all over. We can franchise this soul food. Anyways, I'm done. And before we leave, though, we usually say to you and to my fellas here, we wish you peace.
Peace.
We send
Love.
you love, but then we sprinkle in a little bit of soul.
So
Here we go. All
Right.
right, until next time, fellas. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate your audience. Like, subscribe, share. If you know somebody who's playing that movie over again, maybe something in this a message in this can help them, so they can cut that mini series and call it a day. All right, until next time. We'll see you guys. Peace.